When you're married with 2 small children, and you can get away with being kissed 5 times a night for 3 weeks by a handsome ne'er-do-well, an absolute rake, a smoldering scoundrel who is not your husband, you do it. But you never tell anyone how much you enjoyed it until now. It was summer. There was a whole lot of outdoor Shakespeare going on. The theater company my husband and I and others had started years before was humming along. I was playing Kate in our production of The Taming of the Shrew. Now, if you're a little bit foggy on your Shakespeare, that's the comedy where Kate, an intelligent, sharp-witted, unmarried, and therefore problematic woman, is forced by her father to marry the charming rogue Petruchio, who makes a bet with his pals that he can tame her out of her shrewish personality, and then proceeds to do so, using sleep deprivation, starvation, and gaslighting. Hilarious, right? It's a problematic role for a woman in our era, and as I discovered, it can kind of mess with your head. Now, my Petruchio was a wonderful actor who I'd worked with before, but this was our first romantic pairing. And in our show, in between the bouts of verbal and physical sparring between Kate and Petruchio, our characters shared 5 kisses over the course of the night. I came to really love the rehearsal process, where I got to discover my characters' wants and needs and actions. But if I'm being completely honest, I really loved wanting and needing and getting some action. I loved my husband. It wasn't like I was fantasizing about running off with Petruchio in some sort of community theater stage romance gone way too far sort of thing. The offstage Petruchio was a really nice guy, respectful, kind, married. I wasn't really interested in him. But the bragging, conceited, domineering, really good kisser that was onstage Petruchio had me hot and bothered. Who knew I had a thing for fictional bad boys? I was a mess. It hijacked my brain, not to mention my libido. I would think about it all day. I would be driving along, my adorable 2-year-old strapped in her car seat behind me, chattering away, telling me about what her stuffed animal raccoon named Crackers just said. But really, I was thinking about kiss number 3, when he puts his cheek out for a chaste little peck, and at the last minute turns his head and bam, right on the kisser. Or my 5-year-old would be showing me the dance she just learned in camp, but really, I was thinking about kiss number 1 after our first round of physical and verbal sparring, where he pins me to the ground and lays a good one on me. This was the mid-90s, and consent was never a thing in Shakespeare's time. The other thing that had me very confused that summer was Jane Eyre. If you're not up on your Brontes, that's the one where she's a governess. She's first an orphan and then a governess, and she falls in love with her boss, the irascible, brooding Mr. Rochester. Now, like Petruchio with Kate, Mr. Rochester messes with her head. So there I was, spending my nights as the much-abused and much-kissed Kate, and then I would go, a woman who was just mired in a patriarchy with no control over her life, and then I would go home, crawl into bed with my copy of Jane Eyre, and sail off to sleep on the story of another woman whose life was controlled by an arrogant man. And I loved it. The lifelong feminist in me was deeply ashamed, but still quite horny. Like I said, a mess. The other thing I learned that summer was that these kisses could leave their mark. Now, Petruchio was a dark blonde, and so the goatee that he grew for the part came in a bit on the light side, so he just took to using a little bit of makeup, some mascara to darken his facial hair. I don't know how many performances ended with me all aglow from that 5th and final kiss, taking a bow. Now the unwitting owner of my own mascara mustache, courtesy of my smooching swain, but it was a few. He finally noticed and then very gently said that he would stop using that Maybelline Deluxe Lash Enhancer in Foxy Dark Brown. In my experience as an actor, I have found that there are certain roles that leave a lasting impression. On the last night of the run, as we stood off stage waiting to make our final entrance into our final scene, me a little bit melancholy at the thought of our final kiss, we looked at each other and smiled silently. He put his hand on the small of my back. It wasn't a kiss, but it felt like an electric pulse. And 25 years later, I will tell you, I can still feel it. Thank you.